Hi everyone, welcome back to Reality TV. I'm here with my co-host John. We're finishing up our season of Amazing Race, which was the very first season, and starts off with episode 8.
Yes.
We finished with episode 7 last video, so we're just gonna pick up right where we left off and get into it.
Yeah. So starting off, the first thing that I kind of mentioned about this was because in the last episode, in the end of episode 7, we saw that Frank and Margarita used the Fast Pass.
Yeah.
So they had an 11-hour lead.
Yeah.
Which is unheard
crazy.
of
Yeah.
because each pit stop is only 12 hours.
Right.
So they were literally about to leave the pit stop as people were finishing, like, the last leg of the race.
Yeah, they're like a whole leg ahead.
Yeah. However, they had to wait until their morning, so it kind of sucked that their 11-hour lead ended up only being 45 minutes.
I know, that sucked. That was like, I mean, I get it. They want to, like, even everybody out, but still, like, that was a good lead to have. Like,
that
that's
was
a really good lead to have.
lead, and they just lost it all.
Yeah, and it wasn't even their fault. That's the thing. It wasn't even their fault.
So they really had 24 hours of a pit stop and not just 12.
What do they, I mean, I guess you get to do whatever you want in that time, which is kind of fun, but still, like, that did suck. I would have been really mad. But I also made a note about them, but it was about their relationship. Coming into the show, they were separated parents. Like, they weren't together anymore. They were on the verge of divorcing. But in this episode, we kind of see them, like, rekindle things. And, like, they're in their little interviews. They're both saying, like, yeah, I think we're going to make up. I think this is, like, this was good for our marriage. This was good for us. And I think that we can work things out. So
I'm more in love with him than I was before.
I wonder if they're still together today, because they did have a kid together.
Yeah.
They were just not together anymore. But it kind of seemed like from this episode all the way to the end of the race, they were like
yeah,
good,
they were kind of starting to get on the mend.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see.
Yeah, which was good, you know. This show can either make or break relationships,
Yeah.
so that was good. Something else that I wanted to mention was about Nancy and Emily. They were kind of struggling at this point, and I was really pulling for them, really hoping that they could, you know, pull through and keep going in the race, because they were one of my favorite teams in the whole show. So I was really rooting for them at this point.
For kind of the second half of the race. But yeah, so they're still in India.
Yes.
First task was they had to go to the Taj. I was, like, so excited because I was like, I really want to visit the Taj Mahal. However, freaking Team Guido over here is just trying to get into the Taj Mahal without paying.
Yeah.
How much are tickets? We thought it was free.
Like, come on, guys.
know.
Like, pay. It's really cheap.
Yeah.
You have enough money. Don't try to swindle the system.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. You're in a race and everything, but, like, follow the rules.
Right.
You know, whenever you're traveling abroad, you're representing America, and that just looks horrible on American tourists.
Yeah.
To, like, try to, like, not, you know, pay for going to something as cool as the Taj Mahal. So that just really, like, pissed me off.
Exactly. And it wasn't even that much, too, I think.
I think it was, like, $3.
Yeah, for, like, each person.
Yeah.
And it was, so $6.
Yeah.
Big whoop. Like, you can spend that money. They're given money at the beginning of every leg anyway, so, like, you're gonna have to spend it on something.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, but then after that, they ended up having to choose a detour, either taking an elephant ride or a boat tour to go meet an old wise man.
Yes.
I personally probably would have done the elephant.
Me too!
Just because, like, you know, how often
so
are you going to go
cool.
ride on an elephant versus, you know, boats, like, all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I probably would have chose the elephant just because I think that would have been more cool.
For sure. And even though Frank and Margarita, like, had their really big lead, but it wasn't as big, they were still, like, killing this leg. I feel like they made, like, no errors this leg.
No.
They were just getting things done, and they were, like, getting ahead of everybody. But I don't think they won this leg. But they were doing really, really well.
Yeah, they were doing really good.
Close, yeah.
Yeah, it was, like, really close because it all came down to the final area of the rat pit.
Right.
Which was a roadblock.
Oh my God.
You know, you had to go into this rat and go and find a clue.
Yeah.
And, I marked that I'd be so skittish if I was,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I would be constantly looking around, seeing if one of them's going to jump on me or something. That was just the one thing that I really would have been kind of frightened. I would have done it if that was my roadblock.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have chose to do it, but, I would have gotten it done.
Yeah, somebody from one of the teams, I don't remember who, was mentioning that they were talking to a local that lives in India, and they were saying, oh yeah, when you go to the Temple of Rats, like, when you walk, don't pick your feet up when you walk. Slide your feet, because there are so many rats, and if you pick up your feet, you might step on one.
Yeah, and you don't want to step on one, so.
Just to get an idea of how many rats were in there.
Yeah.
And there were that many rats.
Right.
It was,
yeah.
It was so disgusting. But they all got it done. They all got it done. They did it pretty quickly, too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they all finished it. Drew and Kevin won that leg.
Yes, they did.
Again, last very close at the end.
It was.
And then, sadly, Nancy and Emily came in last. However, it was a non-elimination leg.
I was so happy.
So it was really cool to see them.
Yeah.
So that they weren't eliminated. I was really excited about that. So they had another chance at the next leg.
Yep.
Next leg.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so starting off with episode 9, I personally don't really like the frat bros, Kevin and Drew. So I was kind of excited that they lost their lead.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know. There's just something about them that I'm just kind of like, with.
They just have very strong personalities. They're very, rough and, with each other, too. They're always, I don't know. It's a very certain kind of personality that I could totally understand. I didn't mind watching them. They were kind of funny. They made me laugh at some points. But this leg, they left India and they're on their way to Thailand.
Yes.
Which was really cool. I've always wanted to go to Thailand. So I think that was, this is probably one of my favorite ones just because of where they were going. But this leg, they were presented with the Fast Pass, and there were only 2 teams. Yeah, there were only 2 teams left that hadn't used it yet. So it was between Team Guido, Joe and Bill, and Nancy and Emily. And I made a note saying that Nancy and Emily better go for that Fast Pass if they want to continue on into the next leg, which they did. Like John said, it was a showdown. And what it was they had to go to, what was it, a temple? A temple. It was a temple, and they had to, participate in this, ritual, I guess, that they usually do in the temple. And they would they had a bag of coins, and they had to drop 1 coin in each pot. And there were how many pots? 100? I think there was 90. Oh, 90 something. 98 or something. Something like that. And they had to grab the right bag with the exact amount of coins that they needed. And if they had too much or too little, they had to go back and start again. So it was really just a game of luck. It really was. Yeah. Sadly, Team Guido won that. Of course. Which, I was, annoyed with and pissed off. So was I, yeah. So then after that, Nancy and Emily, they were like, well, let's just have fun for the rest of the race. Because everyone else was pretty far ahead of them at that point. I will say, whenever the teams had the option of either looking for a free car to drive themselves to kind of the next destination, or they had to pay someone, to drive them to the next destination, I probably would have spent about 15-20 minutes looking for the free car first, because I knew that, the 2 teams, Team Guido and Nancy and Emily, had gone to the Fast Pass. I knew that was going to take a little bit. So I personally, as a team, I would have been like, okay, let's look for this free car for about 15 minutes, maybe 20 max. But I was surprised with how many teams were just like, not even going to look for it. Let's just, pay and go. Just go to the bus, Yeah, and I was just like, I probably would have looked for, 15-20 minutes because I knew that those teams went. Yeah, so you wouldn't longer be in last. Than that. Yeah. You knew that you weren't going to be in last either way. And the car was supposed to be faster too, right? Yes. Because the bus was had so many stops to take or whatever, so the car would have gotten you to where you needed to be faster. So it definitely would have been worth it to look for it. And I feel like they were hidden in very hard places. No, one team found them. Yeah, I don't remember. It was Rob and Brennan, I think. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So they found their thing pretty quickly. Yeah, they did. I don't know how other teams were spending so much time. They were really struggling to find those cars. Yeah. After the Fast Pass, Nancy and Emily, they took forever. Yeah, and I will say they started to get a little annoying during that time. Yeah.
I was like, okay, guys, you know,
Just
I really
take the
like
boss.
you
Yeah.
at this point, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, so I mean, that I was just very, very surprised with. And then we
Mm-hmm.
also saw, you know, Team Guido decide, oh, you know, we're going to take the train because they had to take a train to this
Right.
city for the pit stop.
Yeah.
And so they went to like the local train station and they saw that the next train wasn't until like 7 or 8 hours that evening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they just were like, oh, everyone's, you know, probably gonna have to take this train. So they were just like, oh, let's just sit back, relax.
Let's just have fun. Yeah.
You know, personally for me, especially if I have that fast pass, I'm not risking anything like that.
Absolutely
like
not.
I am 100% always
a way,
going to, like, I will pay for that cab. Even if it was like a 6-hour like cab ride, pay for it.
Pay for
you
it.
know?
But they didn't, obviously. They didn't.
Yeah. And we will talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah. So going back to Nancy and Emily, the part of the clue was to either find that free car or take the bus. Either or. That was your only two options. And they thought, we're so far behind, like, we just want to get this, like, over with. I just want to be done with this. So they didn't do either, and they ended up just taking a taxi. To like the next part of the leg, which in the end we'll talk about again later, didn't really pan out for them, didn't work out for them very well. And things could have been really different if they would have.
Yeah, things would have been a lot
yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of the next stop after they either, you know, took the bus or found the cab, was to go to a tiger pit.
Yeah.
Where the tigers they weren't exactly free roaming, but they kind of were.
Yeah.
They were on like long leashes.
They were like, they were chained up, but it was,
Yeah.
It was
And so they had to like walk through it. They were dressed up as kind of like a monk, to kind of give some familiarity to the tigers. And one thing that I just laughed at so much was whenever Frank just kind of got like swatted by a tiger.
I know, that was
like
so
it was
funny.
hilarious, but like I know deep down like him and me too would have probably been like freaking out.
Yeah.
You know.
It looked scary, but also like I love cats, so I definitely would have loved to have done that. I think
Taryn would have done that for us.
Yeah, for sure. I would have been like, I got this, John. This is all me. They were just chilling. Like honestly, they didn't look very aggressive. They were just kind of like doing their own thing, and Frank, obviously, like John said, Frank got swatted, but it wasn't like an aggressive thing. Like the tiger was just kind of like, "Hey, you want to play?"
Yeah,
type
it was
thing,
more of
you
like
know?
playing, you know.
Yeah, but like, I definitely would have been afraid too. Like they're really big and you know they're tigers,
Yeah.
so it would have been scary. But I definitely would have loved to do that one. Everyone else seemed to do like really well on that part though. They just walked right up.
Everyone
to
just
the
walked
clue.
right
Yep.
in, grabbed the clue, walked back out.
And they were done.
Yep,
That
and
was
then
it.
that's whenever they had to go to the pit stop. So almost all of them ended up getting private cars.
Yes.
The only people that didn't was Team Guido.
Yeah.
And so I was so happy that they were not in first place at the leg, even
Yeah.
after doing the fast pass hours before. And so Robin Brennan came in first place. And then after that, it was, I think, the Frank and Margarita.
Yeah.
And then I think the frat bros.
Yep.
And then Nancy and Emily got there.
They got there.
They got there
Oh
hours.
my gosh, this is what we were
literally
talking about.
hours
Yeah.
before Team Guido. However, whenever Team Guido showed up, they, you know, technically, because their rules, you know, they could just go straight to the pit stop versus, as Taryn was saying earlier with Nancy and Emily, they were supposed to take either the paid car, or the free car, or going through the bus to the next pit stop. They ended up paying for like a taxi instead. And so because of that, which I was really surprised, they gave them a 24-hour penalty.
That's a major penalty.
Yeah, I like most penalties in future seasons, they're like
the current
2,
seasons, yeah.
3, maybe 4 hours. But that was 24 hours, which I don't think it deserved to be 24 hours.
not
I
at
think
all.
max it should have been 3 hours.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that yes, they saved some time by not taking the bus.
Yeah.
But it was like, you know, no more than probably 20 minutes that they would have saved. But because of that, you know, I guess they decided to do a full 24 hours. So sadly, Nancy and Emily were eliminated, and you know, they 100% deserve to stay over Team Guido.
Agreed.
But again, I just don't think that 24-hour penalty was necessary.
No, that was way too much. Which is really annoying because if they would have just taken, you know, the car or the bus, they would have easily beat Team Guido because they got there, like John said, like so much later than all the other teams. Like, they would have been out, done, gone. But no, 24-hour penalty killed them, unfortunately. So they're gone, sadly.
Yep. Now we're into the top 4. And so we're getting to the final episodes. Episode 10.
Yep.
Was they had to start off by rock climbing to get the clue.
Yes. Yeah, this was a very outdoorsy person type of leg. And I was just thinking, like, man, anybody, like, from our state would have loved this leg.
Yeah.
Because, like, they were doing everything that, like, people that we know do.
Rock climbing,
canoeing, you know, all hiking, all the outdoor stuff. Like, this is a Pacific Northwest leg for sure. But yeah, so that's what they were doing. Something that I want to note really quick was that Margarita is the only woman left in the competition, which is pretty cool. All of the 3 out of the 4 teams are male teams, except for Frank and Margarita, obviously.
Yep.
So Margarita was holding it down for the ladies, and she was doing pretty well.
Yeah, she was
kicking butt.
Yeah.
And I was really proud of her. The rock climbing, however, that looked scary to me, because, like, you're literally rock climbing, like, real rocks. You're not, like, on some rock wall. Like, it's literally, like, rocks. And it looked dangerous and scary, and I probably would have hurt myself doing it, honestly.
Yeah. And I would also say, too, this is the last leg that the teams were all kind of together.
Yeah.
We'll see the top 2 teams really kind of jump out ahead of the bottom 2 at this point.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the episodes to come.
Yeah.
But we really started to see that break of the top 2 and the bottom 2 for the final 4.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because they had to go to all these locations that were all open and closed at certain times.
Right, exactly.
So if you missed it, you literally had to, like, wait like 12 hours for the next thing to open up. And that's what hit 2 of the 4 teams, which that just set them back while the other 2 teams could keep going. And, you know, it was just starting that cycle of getting that more and more farther apart.
Yeah.
Another thing that I kind of noted too, I don't have a lot with this leg. I kind of said it was almost like a filler episode.
It kind of was, yeah.
Like, there wasn't anything super exciting that happened. You know, at the very end of the episode, you know, it was a non-elimination leg.
Yeah.
Of course. So, of course, Team Guido was supposed to be eliminated, but they didn't.
Of course. They came in last, but yeah.
Like, they just got all the luck this season.
They did.
Like,
they surely did.
Really?
Yeah.
Also, I was really mad that it was like a non-elimination leg, like, so far into the race.
I know. It's like,
and why are they all?
Done.
Yeah, they're all like at the end of the season. They
Yeah.
just had one, you know, 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so they're just gonna do them back to back, basically.
Yeah. Like John was saying, this is where the team started to separate the top 2 and the bottom 2. Joe and Bill were part of the bottom 2. They were far behind, like way far behind everyone else. And they started this leg of the race after Robin Brennan finished the leg.
And even Frank and Margarita.
Yeah, and Frank and Margarita. So those 2 teams went through this whole leg, did everything, finished.
all the roadblocks.
They were done. They were chilling on the beach. And then that's when Team Guido started it.
Yeah.
Drew and Kevin were still like mid
they
leg.
were. I think they were kind of like they had accomplished the first or maybe the second task.
Yeah. So they got through like a good chunk of it. They were still pretty far ahead of Team Guido. So that was good, but this like leg had to continue on to the next day. Like, everyone had to find a place to sleep, and then the bottom 2 teams, which were Drew and Kevin and Joe and Bill, had to finish the leg the next day.
Yeah.
Which is, like, something you don't really see that often anymore. No. Unless it's, like, all of the teams have to finish, or finish the next day, or, like, you know, something like that.
Like, it's a whole, like, team thing. It's not just a couple of individual ones.
Yeah, but this was where, like John said, where they started to really separate. But yeah, that was what I wanted
because
to say
at the
about
end of the episode, you know, those 2 teams, the bottom 2, started their 12 hours.
Yeah.
But what we didn't see until the next episode, but just with timing, you know, knowing what time it was and everything, the other 2 teams, Frank and Margarita and Robin Brennan, had already started the next leg.
Yes. Yeah.
Before they had even finished this one.
Right.
So that's, again, that's where we started to see this disconnect of how far apart they were.
Yeah.
Which leads into kind of the next episode.
So episode 11, like John was saying, this was when Frank and Margarita and Robin Brennan started this leg. Meanwhile, the other two teams are still finishing up the last leg.
Yeah.
So there's crossover between the two legs,
this
which
is where
we
you get
never
a lot
ever
of
see.
crossover.
This is weird.
It was a little confusing to watch at times.
Yeah, because I was like, wait a second, they're still in this leg, they're still whatever.
Yeah.
So this 11th leg started off with a detour. You could either go play ping pong against some champions.
Yeah, because I think
they're in China.
Yeah, they traveled to China.
They're in China. So that was another weird thing, is that two teams are in China, while the other two teams are still in Thailand.
Yeah.
Like, you never see that anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, you had to go against champions of ping pong, which were literal children. Mm-hmm. But they were champions for a reason. Or they could go on this, like, car treasure hunt, which none of the teams did, so I don't know what it was supposed to look like at all.
I mean, I also would have chose ping pong.
Yeah.
Just because growing up, my grandma, she was Japanese, and she taught me how to play ping pong.
Yeah.
So I always played with her often.
Yeah.
So I would have been like, oh, I mean, I'm not saying I'm, like, great by any means. I'm not saying I easily could have beat, these champions.
Yeah.
But, like, I think, because they only had to get 6 points.
Right. 5 points.
Or 5. Yeah, 5. And, I think I could have gotten 5 points, probably, like, within 15, maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it wasn't like you had to win the game. Like, you just had to literally just score 5 points.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. And, like, the champion, the kids, obviously they were going to score some points too, but, like, as long as you got to 5, then you were good. You finished the detour. And Frank and Margarita finished it so fast.
I was so surprised.
Frank got his 5 points so fast.
Yeah.
And I was a little confused about this, because nowadays when you do detours on The Amazing Race, both people on the team have to do it.
Yeah.
But only Frank did it.
Yeah. I think it was like, whoever wanted to.
Yeah, which
but
is
they
usually
could
what they do
switch,
for... Right.
Because
right.
Brennan and Rob both did some.
Yes, that's right.
But,
so I guess that makes sense, but I thought it was like each person on the team had to get 5 points.
Yeah.
So once Frank got his 5 points, I was like, okay, Margarita has to get hers too, but they didn't.
No, they were just good to go.
So that was confusing to me. So I was like, wait, is this a roadblock or is it a detour?
Yeah.
But they got it done fast. Robin Brennan, not as fast.
But
they got it done. They got it done.
And then they went to the roadblock, which was they had to go and get some Chinese delicacies and go and cook them. And then one partner had to eat.
Yes.
One thing that I thought so, like, both annoying and funny is that, like, Margarita was like, oh, okay, like, this is probably an eating, I will do it because it's probably like an eating challenge.
I'll do it. Come on. I'll do it, I said. Give it to me.
So she said that she'll do it, and then whenever she opened up and read that she had to just, like, eat everything that they just bought, she was then complaining about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, girl, why are you complaining?
She literally fought Frank.
You just said that it was an eating challenge and that you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And Frank was like, I could do it. And she was like, no, I'm going to do it. And then whenever you opened up and you're like, eat the things that you just bought. And she's like, what? I have to eat? What? Like, I was like, girl, like... You just said that.
She literally had a whole argument with Frank about it. Frank was like, no, I can do it. Like, if it's going to be eating, I can do it. And Margarita was like, no, you can't do it. I got this. You can't do it. I know you can't.
Yeah.
Like, and then she was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, really? Come on.
I was just like, okay.
All the other teams were able to put it together. Like, you just went shopping for all the delicacies. Of course, you're going to have to go cook it.
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe it's
Stupid, you say?
Yeah.
duh. But she got it done. I
Yeah.
mean, she did it, and she sucked it up, and she did it. So good for her.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think Frank could have done it, so I'm glad Margarita did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, them finishing this, and Robin Brennan did it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Rob was the one eating for his team, and he was like feasting.
Yeah, he was munching down.
Yeah, like he hadn't eaten in like weeks.
Yeah.
He was eating it like it was literally the best thing he's ever had in his life.
I was gonna say, like, it made me also want to eat that because I was like, that looks really tasty.
Yeah, he was making it look good.
Yeah.
Like, I was impressed. So yeah, they were finishing this. Frank and Margarita won this leg of the race.
Again, by like seconds.
Yeah, by second. Yeah, it was like Robin.
They were running. Robin Brennan got off at they got out of their cab too early.
Yes.
Because they had to go to the west gate?
Something like that, yeah.
It was either the east or the west gate. And Robin Brennan thought that they were at the right one, so they got out of their cab, but they ended up having to run across the park.
Yeah.
While Frank and Margarita, their cab
right
just
there.
were like, brought them off right there.
Yeah, so they finished this leg, and then...
after they finished.
Yeah, after they finished,
then...
the other two teams started.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, this was such a crazy time of this race. It was a really tight race for third place.
It was. They were constant back and forth.
Yes, they were like right up next to each other.
Yeah.
And like when we were saying before, the ping pong or the car treasure hunt detour thing, the first two teams did ping pong, but the bottom two teams didn't.
Yeah.
They ended up doing the car treasure hunt, which was like... Why?
Yeah.
Did they do that? It took up way more time.
Right.
But neither.
And they were like in these like little like pedicabs.
Yes. Yeah.
That they had to bicycle.
And they had to do it in the dark.
Yeah.
So that was like not smart. But they were all like so scared. They were like, oh my gosh, I can't get 5 points in ping pong. Like I've never played ping pong in my life, but I'm sure I could get at least 5 points.
Yeah. Probably within 30 minutes.
Within 30 minutes. Like that's not even an hour. Like come on. But that's what they ended up doing. Again, super far behind the top two teams.
Yeah.
And in the end, by seconds, again, Drew and Kevin came in last place, unfortunately.
Yeah. It was like really annoying because Team Guido were like celebrating that they got like third. And they're like, oh my God, like we're in the final three. And I was like, do you even realize like how far behind? Like I would not be celebrating if I was you. Like I'd be like... Okay, can we just start the next leg?
Yeah.
Because literally everyone else was about to start.
Yeah.
And you were just finishing.
Yeah.
So, and you still have a 12-hour wait.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, which was what was really killing the teams, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
And coming up to the end, episode 12, the last episode.
This is the two-parter finale.
Yep, this is part 1 of the finale. They were in China?
Yes, yeah. So they started off in China.
That's right, yeah.
And just one thing to know before we even get started into this leg is that in the very beginning, we started to see Frank and Margarita start to fall apart.
Again.
And I was just like, you know what? Taryn, like, called that from the very beginning. That was Taryn's initial reaction with them, that she was like, I don't know how well they're going to do. Like, they're kind of, like, fighting. And this was the leg that just, like... broke them, I think.
Yeah. Which was sad because they were just like how I was saying at the beginning of episode 8, they were like talking about how they were going to work things out and things were like going really well for them, and then this happens.
Yeah, and this this like ups and down on The Amazing Race.
Yeah, exactly. And Frank and Margarita, something else about them, they had to go to like a certain part of the Great Wall of China to start off this leg of the race and like grab their next clue. Frank and Margarita, for some reason, thought they had to hop fences to get to where they needed to be.
Yeah, like I think they got out of their cab too early.
Yeah, something like that.
And then they were confused as to where they were supposed to go. So they just started like hopping over all these like fences just to like get to the Great Wall. Yeah. And I'm just like, I would feel so bad for the cameraman because they have to follow them with this like huge camera.
Exactly.
So,
and I was like, okay, where in their brains did they think that the Amazing Race people would be like, okay, you have to hop these fences to get to where you need to be. Right. Like there was obviously an easier way to get to where you needed to be. And they just didn't.
Yeah, so I mean, that was just, like, so crazy.
Yeah.
But then once they got to kind of where they were supposed to be, the teams had to choose a detour, either steep or flat. The steep one is that they had to walk up these very steep flights of stairs to kind of the next... battalion house or whatever in the Great Wall to get their next clue. For the flat one, they just had to walk in the flat section. Obviously the steep is a shorter distance, but again, you're going upstairs. I would have done the flat path just because I know stairs are a killer, and I just don't think I would have been able to make it up those stairs, to be honest.
I said the opposite. I feel like I would have just had to power through and just do the steep one.
See, like, I feel like I could have done, like, a light jog with the flat,
that's
you know?
true. That's true. I don't think any of the teams ended up doing that.
No,
So
everyone
we didn't
just
get
did
to
the
see-
steep.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't get to see how that would pan out,
No.
unfortunately. Everyone did the steep, and they got their next clue, and they were going back to the States.
Mm-hmm.
They're leaving China, and they're going to Alaska.
Yeah.
That was their next destination. So the top two teams, same as it has been, got their clue, and they were on their way.
Yep.
On their way to Alaska, while Team Guido was
Still
who
so
knows
far
where.
behind. Yeah.
So far behind. They were still riding out there 12 hours.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what they were doing, but
I know.
they were not starting
It's just
this luck
like,
of the race.
it was almost like to a point of like embarrassing that I was
Yeah.
like, just like quit. Like,
Honestly.
there's no way that you have a chance.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh, like we're going to come back and, you know, oh, the teams are going to make like a mishap. And I was like, they would have to do a completely
Like,
huge
yeah.
mishap
Yeah.
in order for you to make up the like literally 24 hours
Yeah.
that are behind you.
Yeah, like kudos to them for like keeping up hope, but like
There was no hope.
there was no hope. Like there really wasn't. At that point they were just being like unrealistic about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in Alaska, they had to when they got to Alaska, they had to stay in a like cabin.
Yeah, in a cabin.
right?
And it was so funny because like the directions for the cabin, it said to like take this road, but then all the signs were like no trespassing.
Yeah, that's right. That's
like,
right.
do not enter.
Yeah.
No, it's closed.
Yeah.
And so all of them were like, oh, okay, well, let's go try to find out where like we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So they go and ask some like local shop, you know, right down the road, and the guy's like, just ignore
it.
them. Just keep
Ignore
on
the
driving
sign.
past the no trespassing signs,
Yeah.
you know?
Just ignore it and go. Okay. He says ignore the closed sign and go.
So that's what they did.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting to where they needed to be.
Yeah,
So
which I thought was so funny that
Yeah.
the Amazing Grace, like, again, had something for them past a no trespassing.
Yeah.
When literally, as Taryn was just saying before, where Frank and Margarita were hopping fences, you know, and we're like, why would the Amazing Race make them do that?
Right,
And,
and
then look, you
then
know,
they did this.
Yeah.
like, come on, they didn't even have like flags or anything.
Right.
That was like, okay, this way, Amazing Race.
Yeah,
like, this
like,
way.
continue if you're
Yeah.
on the Amazing Race.
Yeah, like help them, like somehow. But no, like of course they're gonna be like, oh, we can't go there.
Yeah.
No trespassing. But that's how they ended up getting there. And they stayed the night in the cabin. And when they woke up the next morning, they started the next part, the Alaska part of the leg. And they started off with like this old tradition that the Alaskan people would do, which was like some kind of blanket toss. Like so the Alaskan people had the, like all surrounded, were in a circle, and they were all holding this blanket, and they would like toss people in the air, and the point was for people to see like what kind of animals were out in the wilderness that they could hunt. But obviously we weren't doing that in the Amazing Race. So the competitors would jump on this blanket and they would look out to find their next clue. That was what they were looking for. And that looked really fun. I would
Yeah.
love to do that. They made it look like a good old time.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so then they did that, you know, which then kind of led into the next leg for the final episode. And then they had a choice once they got there to kind of the detour of either doing dog sledding or a snowmobile.
Yes.
The dog sled was, I think they said 15 miles versus the snowmobile was 30 miles. But it did not matter because I would have chose the dog sled regardless.
Easily.
You're in Alaska and you have the option of a like traditional snow dog sled or doing a snowmobile. Like, come on.
You're gonna pick
that
dog
is
sledding.
not a tough option.
Why would you not pick dog sledding?
Right?
Like, even if you've never done it before. That looks so
Yeah.
fun.
That's a reason to do it if you
Yeah,
haven't done
yeah,
it before.
exactly,
Because how
exactly.
often are you going to go back up to Alaska and be like, let's do a dog sled?
Yeah, and be like, oh, I went dog sledding. Like,
Yeah.
no, not a lot of people can say that. So I definitely would have done that too. I made a note of that too, and I was like, that looks so much fun. And after that, when they got to their next destination, they had to jump into the frozen water, right?
yep,
They said it
the
was like
freezing
40
water.
degrees or something
Yeah.
like that, which is cold. And they had to strip down. They couldn't jump in with any clothes on. They had to strip down to either their bathing suit or their underwear.
Yeah.
And do you remember in high school when people would go and do the
Yeah,
polar plunge?
and do
That's
the
what I
polar
thought of.
plunge.
I was
Yeah.
like, this is the original polar
Yeah,
plunge.
right, yeah.
Like, this is when they started it.
Which is why, like, low-key, I would have wanted to do this road
Yeah,
walk.
same.
Like, if I saw that, like,
Same.
if I I mean, they had an idea as far as what was about to happen. I would have been like, I could do this one, you know?
for sure.
Because it was so easy. All they had to do was just jump in. They just had to make sure that their head went underwater. And that was it. They didn't have to stay under for X amount of time.
No.
They didn't have to swim anywhere. Like, the clue was just right there in the water. They just kind of jumped in. However, of course, Rob, like, saw it and then, like, you know, got out, and then he forgot the clue, so he had to jump back in. And I was like, okay, you know, going in twice is, like, a little different. Going in once, okay, twice.
No, he had to do it twice, but that was his own fault. Like, you know what? He should have, like, remembered, but I guess, you know, he got in there and he was, like, so cold that he just forgot everything. I don't know. But yeah, I would have done that. It didn't look too bad. Like, no. And also, like, again, you're in Alaska. How many times can you say, like, you went to Alaska and you jumped into the freezing cold water? Like, that is so cool. So I definitely would have wanted to do that too. And then when Frank and Margarita did it, Frank was the one who jumped in, and then afterwards he was just walking barefoot in the snow.
Yeah, just to like get back to like, I know, like, you know, they're trying to like race and everything, but like, you know, at least put on some socks or something. At least, but no,
he was just running through the snow barefoot. I was like, okay, my feet would have definitely fallen off.
Yeah,
by now. Like, I don't understand how he's doing that.
But yeah, so then that was where they got their clue that they were then going to New York City, which is where Frank and Margarita are from.
Yes.
And so at this point, Frank and Margarita were super happy. Rob and Brennan were just kind of like, okay, you know, we know that we're kind of in the underdogs now. We're like in their territory, so we got to make sure that we do everything perfect.
Yeah.
And so on the way to the airport, they stopped at a gas station and they like paid someone $300, which I know back then was probably equivalent to maybe like $600 or $700 nowadays. To borrow someone's cell phone.
I'll give you $300 to use your cell phone for the rest of the day.
For, you know, a couple of days.
Yeah.
For the day. And then, you know, whenever they ended up, you know, shipping it back to them.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that probably would never fly.
No.
Like, no one would give up their cell phone like that.
I can't believe they trusted them, but like you said, like back then,
there wasn't much that you could do with a cell phone.
Exactly,
so,
except for call people.
Yeah, so. And that was literally it. Like, I think maybe you could text if you had, like, if you wanted to pay for it, you know?
And the woman was like, oh yeah, here you go, take my phone.
Yeah, so
like, what?
I was very surprised with that. But,
I know, me too.
Then also funny too, because again, they were coming from Alaska, and almost all Alaska flights have to go through SeaTac.
SeaTac, I made that note too.
I saw that, and it was actually funny because I travel a lot for my work.
Yeah.
So I'm at SeaTac very often, and it looks kind of the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, from 2002 to, you know, what is that, 2023?
Yeah.
Kind of the same.
I was looking at that too, and I was like, why does our airport look exactly the same?
So, SeaTac, I know you just updated the end terminal, but let's maybe update the rest of the terminals now. So at this point in the race, they're on their way to New York, and Joe and Bill are just starting their leg in Alaska. This is how far behind they were. 24 hours behind Frank and Margarita, and Team Guido, of course, was still like, "Oh, we got this. We can still get it. We can still like get ahead. Maybe they'll make some big mistake. Everybody loves an underdog story, but like they were literally 20. Yeah, not with them, but they were literally 24 hours behind. Like." They really were delusional to think that they could, like, catch up. Like, what did they think was gonna go wrong? I don't know.
With the other two teams.
And so they like, had just woken up in their cabin.
Yep. And
so what they had to do first is they had to walk, I don't know, maybe like a mile or so in the snow to kind of, where they would have met the snow dogs or the snowmobiles for the detour. However, whenever they got there, it was too early in the morning, so all that wasn't open yet. So they went into, like, the local, like, restaurant, bar, whatever was there. And that's where they kind of were for the rest of the race. Yeah, exactly. Waiting. Yeah, literally just waiting. And then, meanwhile, the other two teams are, like, finishing the race. The whole thing. They were finishing it. Yep. So, so now we flash forward to kind of the airport and then getting there. I noted that this is kind of where, like, Frank and Margarita almost started to turn a little nasty. They were. Towards, like, Brennan and Rob. And, like, Brennan and Rob were, like, really classy. Yes, they were. They could have really, like, effed over Frank and Margarita because they said, oh, we can just reserve seats so that they see that they're not open, but then just never book them.
Yeah.
You know, all the other stuff. But then both of them were like, no, like,
We
you
can't
know,
do that.
we don't want to play dirty. They're like, you know, Frank and Margarita, they probably would have, but that's just
we're
not the
not
way
gonna
that
do
we
that,
do it.
yeah.
And 100%, I think they would have, because
Oh, for
like Frank
sure.
and Margarita, they were talking about how they never really liked them, blah, blah, blah. And
I
I
was
was
like,
like,
what are you talking
guys
about?
were working together for a lot of the race.
whole time,
So
yeah.
like, you know, don't act like
Yeah.
you don't like them.
Yeah.
Now it's because between the two of you.
Exactly.
And like whenever they like saw each other, like they wanted to say hi. Like
Yeah.
like Rob and Brennan were like, hey, and like
They
they,
didn't say
just
anything.
ignored them.
Yeah.
And I was just like, Frank and Margarita, like your true colors are kind of starting to show
Exactly,
here.
yeah.
And it really just like
It was nasty.
yeah, it was really nasty to see.
And like Frank kept saying, oh yeah, Rob and Brennan have been like just following in our footsteps this
Yeah.
whole race. Like they've just been copying us, doing whatever we were doing. And like I did not see that.
No, like
happen.
maybe like once or twice.
Sure, but,
like
like,
they also did that too with other teams, you
because
know.
they were working together. Frank and Margarita and Rob and Brennan were like working
Yeah.
together. Like that's how it went.
Yeah.
Sometimes one team took the lead, sometimes the
The
other
other
team
one
took the
did,
lead.
yeah.
Like that's how it went, but it was not like, oh yeah, Rob and Brennan are just following Frank and Margarita the whole time doing whatever they do.
Yeah.
Like that's not at all what happened.
No.
So I was like getting annoyed with them.
Yeah.
Especially Frank. I was like, what is he even talking about?
I know.
Like, does he like whatever?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when I was like, okay, at this point, I was like, I hope they lose, honestly.
Yep.
Like, Frank
I
and
agree.
Margarita at this point don't deserve to win.
No.
And they were getting so cocky because they were like, we're going to New York.
Yeah,
So
like, we
if
know
they end
all
up
the
following
back
us, like, I'm
routes
going to
and-
lead them down the wrong road, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. I was like, really? Like, shut up.
Yeah. So anyway, so they get to New York,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to go to some park, and apparently this park is literally like, you know, 5 blocks away from Margarita's father's house,
Yeah, mhm.
and like 10 blocks away from where they like live.
Right.
So it's like right down the road from them.
Yep.
So like Frank and Margarita were like, oh, like, you know, we'll just take whatever cab, because Frank's like, I know where to go. I'm gonna have them take this like secret back road and everything. And so Rob and Brennan, you know, they don't know anything, so they just get in a cab and they're like,
Yeah.
please take me here as quick as you can.
Yep.
So we get there, you know, we're not sure who's going to show up first. Is it the local route? Is it the, you know, the normal standard taxi route? Like,
Yeah.
who's going to, you know, make it there first?
Yeah.
And so happy that Rob and Brennan with the just kind of, you know, taxi route made
Mm-hmm.
it there first. They got the clue. After that, it said to take that was like
Subway?
the
Was it
C
called
train.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. something
Their
like that.
9
Yeah.
train or something.
Yeah.
7 train, I think.
Yes, yeah.
And take it to like this one stop to the park,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you know, to race to the finish line from there. So they like quickly got on the train,
Yep.
and as they're boarding the train, Frank and Margarita get there, and they're like, oh yeah, like we're the first people here. There's no way that the other, like that Rob and Brennan made it, because ours was a direct route.
And they didn't see them, so they thought that they were super far ahead.
Yeah, and so they were like, they got tickets for the next train, but they didn't realize that, you
Yeah.
know, Rob and Brennan were
yeah.
already on the
Already
previous train,
on their way.
going.
They were
and so
leaving.
like Margarita's like up there like dancing, and she's
Celebrating,
like so
yeah.
happy, and it just gave me joy.
Yes,
Literal,
knowing.
like you don't understand the smile I had on my face.
I was literally laughing at her.
Like just knowing the sweet joy that she was celebrating for literally second place.
Yep.
You
But
know?
she was like, oh, we got this. I
Yeah.
can't believe it. We did it. Like, she was literally like, Frank, we did it. We did it. We did it for our daughter. Like, did what?
Yeah. Oh,
Got second
congrats. You did it. You know, number
literally-
2.
Yes, she was so excited. And then when they got onto the train, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
Like, this is so exciting. I can't believe we made it. We won. And Frank was like, you think we won? You think? Like, he was trying to, like, stay humble.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
he was also, like, kind of
Yeah, he
he
also kind of thought, because again it was his route.
Right.
That was the best route.
Yeah, because they're from there. They know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, so then Rob and Brennan get off the train, and they race down the flags and everything, and it's so nice to see them win.
Yep. And they didn't know that they won either. They were like,
they weren't sure. They were like, you know, they could be ahead of us, they
Yep.
could be behind us,
Yep.
because they had no idea.
Yeah.
You know,
They hadn't seen both the top 2 teams didn't see each other. So,
after the airport.
Yeah,
they
so
just,
Rob and Brennan were like, okay, we could run up to this and like we could be in second place. Like we don't know.
Yep.
But we're gonna haul
hope.
ass to get there.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there as fast as we can.
Yeah.
And they did, and they ended up winning.
Yeah.
And it was, I was so happy. They were crying.
I know.
Both of them started crying. It was so cute. Like, they deserve to win for sure. I was really happy with that outcome. And then here comes Frank and Margarita.
Yeah.
They're running. Margarita's smiling. They
Yeah.
hear everybody cheering. So Margarita's like, oh my gosh, yeah, we did it. We won. And then
Frank's
Brennan.
like, wait, Robin
Yeah.
Brenner up there. And then she just stops.
She literally stops.
She
She walks.
literally stops and she's like, and I was
Yep.
like, that's right.
Like, yeah.
in
sit
your
down.
place.
Sit down. Like, you might as well just sit right there. Don't even keep walking.
Don't finish.
Yep, don't even finish the race.
You know,
But-
how nasty you were just literally like
Yes.
3 seconds ago. Like,
exactly. Like,
sit down.
They were fake the whole race.
Yeah.
Because they were like, yeah, we're working with Robin Brennan.
Yeah,
like,
at the very
blah.
end, just to be saying all these nasty things about them, you know.
Yep. But they ended up finishing, obviously. They ended up finishing second place. And then, meanwhile...
I know, I was going to say the cherry, the absolute cherry on top.
Yeah.
On top of, you know, Frank and Margarita not winning.
Yeah.
But, I guess the whipped cream.
This is the whipped cream,
on the
yes.
cherry
Yes.
on top.
Yes.
Was that Team Guido didn't even finish.
Nope.
They literally, they weren't even able to continue, wherever
didn't
the
even get to
dog
New York.
races were
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because they had already finished the race.
Yep.
Literally, whenever they opened up their clue for the detour of either doing the dog race or the snowmobile, they're like, hey, by the way, Robin Brennan has crossed the finish line.
Yeah.
They got first. So,
Yep.
you know, you're done.
So they're like, you're done. And which is something, again, we don't see anymore.
No, that never happened on any other season. It
Yep.
was just that one.
Yep.
That I think moving forward, they ended up changing it because I think they wanted it to be a little bit more suspenseful.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
suspenseful for
Exactly.
kind of the teams.
Yeah, they always make sure now, the last leg of the race, no matter how far behind someone is, they all equal
They have a
out.
chance,
They
kind
have
of.
an equalizer. They at least make sure they're all in the same state.
Yeah.
To start
Yeah.
the race,
Yeah.
at least. But yeah, so that was the first season of The Amazing Race. I'd never seen it before. There was a lot more drama and stuff that I thought there was going to be. I was like, first season of Amazing Race, whatever, it's not going to be that interesting, because the first season of Survivor was kind of like the guinea pig season.
Yes.
So not a lot happened. There wasn't much drama. So I was kind of assuming the same thing for this, but it was not like that at all. And I really enjoyed this season.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, let us know below if you have any of your own comments, anything that you liked, disliked about the season. Also, let us know what your favorite season is of The Amazing Race. We'd
Yeah.
love to know.
Yeah.
And stay tuned for our next video, and we hope to see you again.
Bye.